Aiden, what are you doing? What on earth happened here? I found my grandson looking cold, wrapped in a blanket, and cowering in the corner of the garage. I rushed over to him in a panic. Grandma, it's okay. It happens all the time. Don't worry about it. That's right. It's his punishment for always causing trouble. I frowned at the statement made by my daughter-in-law, who had quietly stood behind me. Encouraging my grandson, I decided to take action. Let's escape, Aiden. I'll protect you no matter what. I'll rescue you from here, so just wait. I took my mobile phone out of my pocket and called someone. My name is Mary. I've reached the age of 70 and run a candy store with my sister Dorothy. After my husband passed away and I was left alone, I seemed to be standing on the brink of despair for a while. My sister, who couldn't bear to see me like that, invited me to join her. This shop belongs to my sister and her late husband, and I'm here to help. Mary, what are we going to do for the New Year celebration? My sister asked. We'll probably go to Oliver's place again this year. I've promised to show up and told Aiden as well. Oliver is my son. He has a child with his wife, Emma, and that's my grandson, Aiden. How old is Aiden now? My sister asked. I think he's 20 years old. Is he still staying at home all the time? At my sister's words, I let my expression darken. My grandson Aiden started shutting himself at home after attending college for a while. He was bullied and dropped out of college this year. Currently, he's unemployed and doesn't step out of the house at all. Aiden used to be such a social and cheerful child, my sister said. Up until high school, my grandson was lively and had a life that had nothing to do with shutting himself at home. But then one day he suddenly became reclusive, and I was unable to hide my surprise when I heard about it. Then you should take this to him, my sister said, handing me some sweets. When you're feeling down, having some sweets and taking it easy is the best. The candy Aiden used to love is back in stock. If you like, take it to him. My sister, who smiles so brightly, is reliable and sheds a bright light on my darkened heart. Time passed and the season turned to the new year. I was visiting my son's house. It must have been cold, right? Come on in, please. My son's wife took my coat and guided me into the living room. I thought she was really considerate and a good person, but then something happened that nullified that impression. Thanks, Emma. By the way, where's Aiden? I couldn't find my grandson anywhere, even though he usually stays holed up at home. He shows his face and smiles at me whenever I visit, but on this day he's nowhere to be found. I had heard my son would be back from work in the evening, but I hadn't been told anything about my grandson. Is he in his room? I thought when I was about to head there. Aiden's out shopping right now, Emma shouted as if to stop me in my tracks. I jumped in surprise, but even more shocking were her words. Shopping. Aiden is able to leave the house now? My grandson, who hadn't left the house for the past year, was taking an unexpected big step. I was so moved that I inadvertently let out a loud cry. Yes, it seems he finally found the courage. I felt a slight unease in Emma's forced smile, but at that moment I didn't dig into it because my son's wife was truly devoted and dependable. Since my son was an emergency doctor, he rarely came home, so the household matters were almost entirely left to his wife, Emma. That's why she quit her job. She wanted to dedicate herself to her family and raise her son properly. She had overcome the challenges of raising him alone. With those thoughts in mind, I had no reason to suspect that Emma would do anything to her grandson. But now I live with a lifetime of regret. If only I had noticed my daughter-in-law's hidden side at that time, my grandson might not have suffered like this. I'm making your favorite steak for dinner tonight, Mary. Oh my, you didn't have to go to all that trouble. Not at all. You've always been so good to us. Please, let me do this much. Thank you. Here, this is for Aiden. The candy that Aiden used to love is back in stock. Saying that, I handed over a box of assorted candies, and she smiled at me with pleasure. I was helping Emma prepare dinner, but when I looked at the clock, it was already past 7:00 p.m. Speaking of which, Aiden hasn't come back yet. Isn't it getting too late for shopping? He just called me. He'll be staying at a friend's house today. A friend? He's been staying inside the house all the time, but it seems he's made an internet friend recently. He'll be staying at their house today. Something felt off. If he had the courage to do that, why would he be cooped up at home? I continued to prepare dinner with those doubts in my mind. I felt something was off about my daughter-in-law's explanation. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. Thinking so, I slipped out of the living room while my daughter-in-law was busy preparing dinner. I quietly visited my son's room, making sure not to make any noise, only to find out that no one was there. Rather, the room was completely empty. What is this? Where's Aiden? Aiden, where are you? Something was wrong. I started walking around my son's house. It was built in an old-fashioned way, with a long corridor running through it. The view of the garden from that corridor was always breathtaking, but today something felt off about it. That garage, has it been cleaned up? This house originally belonged to my husband, and it's his family home. Now my son and his family live there, so I knew that garage had been there for a long time. But for some reason the garage that was dirty last year had been cleaned. It had changed as if someone had put a hand to it, and I couldn't help but wonder why. I was about to approach the garage, changing into the sandals, left in the garden, when it happened. "Mary, what are you doing?" My son's wife's shouting voice rang out as if to stop me from entering the garage. Surprised by her loud voice, I involuntarily jumped back. "You suddenly disappeared, and I've been looking all over for you, Emma. I'm sorry. I thought I'd take a look at the garden as it's been a while." "Oh, come on. Please let me know next time. This house is so big, it's hard to notice if anything happens." Her laugh was somehow frightening, and I took a step back, forcing a smile. "Aiden came home when he heard you were here, Grandma. He's in the kitchen now. Shall we go back?" Came home. That one sentence filled me with unease again. For my grandson, who had been staying home, a chance to play with friends should have been extremely valuable. I was happy that he was pleased to see me, but would he really come home just because of that? My suspicions grew towards my son's wife as we headed back to the living room together. But on the way, I didn't overlook it, the fact that my grandson's shoes were next to the garage. After this, I was to find out that my grandson had been leading a truly desperate life. "Come on, the steak is ready. Let's eat." My son's wife handed me a plate and encouraged me to eat, but I couldn't find my grandson anywhere, no matter how much I looked around. I couldn't even sense his presence. Puzzled, I decided to ask, "Hey, where's Aiden? You said he came home, right?" I had been concerned about my grandson ever since I arrived, and my son's wife seemed to sigh in frustration at my questions. "Aiden's in the kitchen." "The kitchen? He takes his meals in the kitchen." I was genuinely shocked by what she said. I recalled my grandson's room earlier in the shoes by the garage. I hastily stood up and headed to the kitchen where my grandson was. Aiden. Grandma. There he was, standing and eating a hamburger. I noticed the hamburger he was eating, but what surprised me even more was my grandson's drastically changed appearance. He used to love sports and had a good physique, but now he was so emaciated that his collarbone and other bones were sharply protruding. His gaunt and unhealthy appearance made me let out a cry that was almost a scream. "Aiden, what happened to you?" "Your body." "Grandma, please help." "What are you doing, Aiden?" The moment my grandson tried to say something, my son's wife appeared, cutting him off. My grandson, whose face looked like he might burst into tears at any moment, now stared at his mother in fear. "Mary, we have this delicious meat. Let's eat it quickly, shall we? Just ignore Aiden." Saying that, my son's wife tried to coax me away from the kitchen. I refused and stood in front of her, as if shielding my grandson. "Emma, what is going on here?" "What do you mean?" My son's wife stared at me with a feigned innocent look, trying to play dumb. Her insincere behavior irritated me and fueled my anger. "Don't play dumb, please. Why is Aiden eating in the kitchen all by himself, and just a hamburger at that?" "Oh, this is his punishment." I involuntarily shuddered at her as she said it with a smirk, as if it were a trivial matter. She continued speaking, laughing with a troubled look and lowering her eyebrows while looking at my grandson, who was hiding behind me. "Today I asked him to clean the bathroom, but he didn't do it properly. It's part of his discipline. Is there a problem with that?" I felt terror at my son's wife's stance on discipline. Just because he failed to clean once, he has to endure this. It's too strange. She must be insane. That's exactly what I felt. I wondered if my son knew how terrifying her ideas were. The moment I opened my mouth to question her, my grandson interrupted me. I'm sorry. I'm okay, really, Grandma. Can you please go eat with Mom and enjoy your meal, please?" He pleaded in a soft voice, and my grandson grabbed the back of my clothes. I could feel his hand trembling through my back, and I chose to swallow the words I was about to say. "Grandma, it's normal for me to eat here, so please don't worry about it, really." "Normal? What do you mean by normal?" "Come on, Aiden says so. Let's go over there, shall we, Mary?" Saying so, my son's wife forcibly took me to the living room. If I stirred things up any further, my grandson might be harmed. If that's why he intervened earlier, to prevent that, I sensed a crisis for my grandson and pondered desperately for a solution. "Come on, let's cheer up and eat. Today we have premium beef steak," she said cheerfully, chewing on the delicious-looking meat. But I couldn't eat it all and excused myself by saying I had a light dinner before coming here. After finishing the meal, I was planning to stay overnight and was guided to the bathroom. Taking the opportunity, I walked around the house again, looking for my grandson. I had to save Aiden from the situation. Since I came to this house and saw my grandson's condition, I sensed that my son's wife was doing something terrible to him. But how to save him? I was thinking of taking my grandson and going to my sister's place, but I couldn't find him anywhere. He was not in the rooms, the bathroom. Where had he disappeared to? Could it be that he's been locked in my son's wife's room? Just then, I spotted the garage in the yard. My grandson's shoes were lying there. Could it be? I quickly changed into the yard sandals and rushed to the garage entrance. The garage entrance wasn't locked, so I was able to enter smoothly. There, I found my grandson trying to fall asleep. "Aiden, what are you doing here? What on earth happened?" I rushed to him. He was huddled in the corner, looking cold and frightened, wrapped in a blanket. He looked up at me, trembling. "Grandma, it's okay. It happens all the time. Please don't worry about it." Emma suddenly appeared at the entrance, smiling at us. That's right, it's his punishment for always being a nuisance. "Mom, Mary, you really do love meddling, don't you? Even though Aiden was trying to protect you." "Emma, you've been cruel to Aiden." "Cruel? What are you talking about? I'm just teaching Aiden the way I was raised. If you do something wrong, it's natural to be punished, right?" Neglect perfectly summed up the family environment. My son's wife had apparently been raised in a harsh environment herself, and she was passing it on to my grandson. But I couldn't accept that kind of parenting. Punishment? This? What did Aiden do? "You don't understand how I feel. I love Aiden and want him to be with me forever. But he abandoned me trying to leave for college. It's all because he went to such a place that he changed." My grandson was utterly terrified by his mother's hysterical outburst. I later learned that her attachment to my son had turned out normal after she overcame the challenges of raising him alone. "So you've confined Aiden. You knew, didn't you?" "That's right. To keep Aiden from leaving, I made him quit college." I couldn't comprehend her terrifying thoughts. My grandson had been living in fear of that twisted love for a whole year. Thinking of his terror, I trembled with rage and glared at her. "Since Mary knows the truth now, I can't let you go home, can I?" With those words, my son's wife began to slowly close the garage door. By the time I realized it, it was already too late. After a loud, metallic clang, I heard the sound of a lock. "I'll think about what to do with Mary overnight. For today, you and Aiden will just have to sleep in the garage and reflect on things." My son's wife seemed relieved she had locked us in and walked away. In the silent garage, my grandson spoke first. "Why? Why did you come looking for me? If you had just left me alone." I couldn't bear to watch him cry out like that. Thinking from his perspective, his life had been hard and painful. Overwhelmed by emotions, I gently embraced him. "Don't talk nonsense, dear. Where is there an old woman who would abandon her precious grandson? You're precious. It's no exaggeration to say that my life was saved because you were born." Just before my grandson was born, I was diagnosed with cancer. My body had withered away and the disease had spread. I thought it might be the end of my life. During that time, Emma had a dangerous childbirth, but my grandson was born, and I felt profound gratitude. My grandson gave me the courage and hope to live. So you see, I decided that I must protect you. It's because of your resilience, which saved my life, that I have been able to live this long. My grandson listened quietly then, perhaps overwhelmed by both pain and joy. He began to cry and embraced me in return. "I really want to run away. I want to leave here and go somewhere Mom isn't. I'm scared of Mom. If I voice any opinion, she starts screaming like a different person. If I didn't listen to her, I'd be locked in this garage. Even if I escaped, she would file a missing person report and I'd be caught right away. There's no escape." I had no idea my son's wife was tormenting my grandson like this. From what he told me, all his friends were taken away by her, and there was no one to help him. It seemed he had given up hope of escaping her control. Now I'm stuck with this weak body. I'm really pathetic, aren't I? It was painful to see his forced smile. I could feel my body trembling with anger. "Let's run away, Aiden." "Huh. I will protect you. I will rescue you from here, so just wait." I pulled out my mobile phone and called someone. "Hello, Mary, what's going on?" It was my sister. I explained the whole situation to her. Rather than getting angry, my sister thought of a way to help us. "First of all, make sure to keep each other warm so you don't get cold. Oliver's workplace is that place, right?" She asked for the address of my son's workplace. I wondered what she was planning to do, but was about to ask when she cut me off, anticipating my question. "We need to teach her a lesson. I'll make her understand that her twisted love is wrong. Just wait, both of you. I'll come and rescue you soon." My sister hung up the phone. We spent some time just like that. It was January in the dead of winter, and since we were in the mountains, the temperature had dropped even further. The cold was so severe that even huddled together, my grandson and I couldn't bear it. Our words dwindled, and I felt like I might lose consciousness. Just as I was about to close my eyes, something happened. It sounded like a fire or some sort of accident nearby. There was a loud noise of ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars. The sound brought me back to my senses, but something about it seemed off. It was very close, as if they had stopped right in front of the garage. I heard my son's voice from outside. Help had arrived, I thought. I stood up and began pounding on the garage with all my strength. "I'm here. Someone please help. Save Aiden. Save my grandson." Following my cry, my grandson also began to call for help. "We're opening it now. Please stand back," a paramedic shouted. My grandson and I moved away from the entrance. The sound of the lock being broken echoed, and the moment it was destroyed, the entrance burst open with force. "Are both of you okay?" My son appeared, his face a mix of panic and anxiety. He hugged his son, who seemed relieved and embraced his father, crying, "Hey, what are you doing? You think this is allowed? Doing something like this without permission?" Emma, unable to comprehend the situation, screamed and ranted, claiming their actions were unreasonable. But not a single adult seemed intimidated by her. Everyone glared at her, and then my sister appeared, confronting her. "Don't talk nonsense. Do you even realize what you've done?" My sister yelled at Emma in a voice louder than I'd ever heard before. We were all taken aback by her voice, but the one who was even more startled was Emma. "You were about to do something irreversible. Don't you understand how dangerous that was?" My sister's anger was like that of a real mother, but Emma raised her voice to confront her. "If Mary hadn't meddled, none of this would have happened. It's not my fault, it's all Mary's fault. I'm not in the wrong." Emma's words made me furious, and I lost my temper. "If I hadn't noticed this today, you would have continued to believe Aiden was yours and kept taking away his freedom." "But that's because Aiden doesn't understand my feelings. Don't force your selfish thoughts on a child. You have no right to call yourself a parent." "What did you say?" Interrupting Emma's attempt to argue, a police officer stepped in front of her. "Emma, you are being detained on suspicion of kidnapping." "What? Hey, wait a minute, hold on. If you resist, the charges will become more serious." At the police officer's words, Emma quieted down and was then taken away. Afterward, my grandson and I went to the hospital for an examination. He had been locked in a freezing garage, but there were no visible abnormalities. He underwent a thorough examination, but nothing unusual was found. However, he was hospitalized to monitor his condition for the day. "Dorothy, thank you for coming to help." "You should thank Oliver. Thanks to him quickly arranging everything, we were able to rescue him." "I'm really sorry. It's my fault for not looking after the house properly." "Oliver, that's not true. You were working hard to protect our home. But maybe this happened because I left everything to Emma, using work as an excuse. I'm also to blame. I spoke gently to my son, who felt responsible. Then from now on, you must protect Aiden. Surely Emma will come to take Aiden back." "Yeah, I think so too. We have to make sure that he never falls into her hands again." "That's true, but what should we do?" "I have an idea. When I proposed this to my son and sister, they both agreed. Time passed, and the day came when Emma was released. As we were prepared for her to contact us, sure enough, Oliver's mobile phone rang. "Wait, what's going on here?" The first thing out of her mouth was neither an apology nor a complaint, but a voice almost like a shout. Both my sister and I, who were listening to the call, sighed at her expected reaction. "What's the matter?" "That house, it's gone, isn't it?" "Yeah, it's gone. We don't need a house to live with you anymore." "What? What do you mean? Explain yourself." Just being released and faced with an incomprehensible situation, she was speaking with a voice filled with anger and desperation. In fact, after that, we all, including my grandson, had discussed it and sold the house, leaving it a vacant lot. Since I had originally been the owner of the house, selling it was easy. My son and grandson were now living on entirely different land, and after this phone call, the mobile phone was to be disconnected and arrangements made to talk to Emma through a lawyer. "There's no way we can go on with you. Aiden has finally settled down. Don't try to interfere with our family anymore." "What are you talking about? Aiden is my precious son." "Stop it." The grandson, who had been listening to the call, quietly spoke up at her, shouting, "Aiden, where are you? Mom will come and get you. Just wait. I'll come and take you back right away." "You're creepy." In response to Emma's words, the grandson spoke out in an angry tone. Emma, surprised at his words, showed a look of confusion. "Aiden, what on earth are you saying?" "I've put up with it for so long. I'm finally living freely with Dad and the others, so don't get in our way. I never want to see your face again." The grandson who had said that was excited, catching his breath with his shoulders. I placed my hand on his shoulder and gently patted it several times. "We are getting a divorce. Don't ever show yourself in front of us again." My son, who had said this, hung up the phone unilaterally and immediately set his phone to reject calls from Emma's number. We also made sure that no contact could reach the grandson's mobile phone, leaving the rest to the lawyer. After that, the divorce from Emma was successfully finalized. Thanks to a restraining order, my grandson is enjoying peaceful days. Emma is said to be attending therapy, unable to let go of her love for her son. She's not working in lives on benefits from the government, or so I heard through the grapevine. Since then, my grandson has stopped shutting himself in the house and is now studying hard with the ambition to attend medical school. I want to become someone who can help others too, inspired by the father and rescue team that saved him. He's been striving every day. My sister and I still run the convenience store, playing with little children every day. For our grandchildren who have regained a peaceful life, and for the children yet to be born who we hope to welcome into our lives, we cannot give up on living just yet.